There we go. Okay. I was starting one of my pantomime shows again. So good evening to you. And we are continuing now with our study of a treatise on cosmic fire. Now, a lot of this is written out on Makara, and you're certainly invited to study it. I would say about 1,100 pages of the book, which has 1,283 pages, something like that, is written out in written commentary form. And about 100 pages or so near the end, and including some things in the beginning, are spoken, more in the video presentation. But what this approach gives us an opportunity to do, if we all manage to find the necessary patience, is to exchange points of view on this great initiatory book. We're told that discipleship in the New Age is a manual for initiation, and we can study it in that way. But further than that, there are a couple of books which can only be read with quite complete understanding by those who are initiate, and this is one of them. And then certain sections of the rays and initiations similarly require that initiate understanding. And if we get into the light of the soul, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, we have DK telling us that the masters themselves study the third and the fourth book out of 4 of the Yoga Sutras. So, Master DK has provided us with some pretty advanced material, and this book is, in a way, his most advanced. Of course, it's written on a different ray. It's written on ray 1 and ray 3, whereas the 5 books that are a treatise on the 7 rays and end with the rays and the initiations are written primarily on the second ray. So people may have an affinity for one or more of these books according to their ray structure. But I think we can definitely get something out of it if we will just be patient with ourselves and with each other and so forth. Just be patient, and it will begin to coalesce the detail, the detailed knowledge of the ageless wisdom. So I'd just like to have a little alignment here before we continue with our reading. We're really in the very beginning of the book. I think no more than page 4 or page 5, and he's laying out the sort of the fundamentals. We've been through, to a certain extent, the introductions by Foster Bailey and also by Alice Bailey. And the way I've done it so far, this is the 9th program, but 4 of them are sort of solo programs, and this is the 5th program in which we are working together and having the necessary kind of exchange, perhaps verbally and in written form, to deepen our understanding. So, excuse me. Wherever we may be, we visualize that it is one consciousness that is uniting us, and all of us are apertures into the deeper possibilities of wisdom. It's said that the mythological figure Argus had 10,000 eyes. And, well, we have quite a number of eyes focused on this subject, and if one of us makes a breakthrough, let us say, very often it can lead to further progress of the other participants. So basically, we're studying the foundations of a certain cosmology and also of psychology. The what's offered here, says the Tibetan, is that out of many keys to the secret doctrine, the psychological key, or certainly the beginning of the psychological key, is being offered to us. Now, what may be for us the final key that leads to the unlocking of the door to greater illumination, that we'll have to see about that. There are just so many possibilities in these keys. There must be, I don't know, maybe almost 20 keys that you can turn, and when we get to that particular footnote, we will take a look. But right now we're dealing with the psychological key, which tells us quite a bit about the different orders of life and the rays, and perhaps zodiacal signs which condition those orders of life, those creative hierarchies, those groups of monads. We are evolving with a group of monads. Sometimes the figure 60 billion is given as regards our particular solar system. And there are Deva monads too. So we're evolving 60 billion human monads in this solar system, and 2 1/3 times that number, 140 billion in this Deva monads in this second major solar system, which is largely a soft line system, and very feminine and Devic in its nature. When we get to the next solar system, instead of 200, 200 billion lives, Deva and human, there will be 300 billion lives, just as there were 100 billion, that's 9 zeros, right? 100 billion lives, Deva and human, or maybe they were more uniform in that system. And that makes for total 600 billion, or 600 followed by 9 zeros, lives that are evolving through our particular solar system. Sometimes he calls that 1,000 million, something of that nature. And tell you what I'll do here. I'll see whether that would come up with it, and it's always good to see it. 1,000 million, and something like that. 60,000 million units of consciousness, or spirits, in the evolving human hierarchy. So the masters know the cycles, and they know the numbers. And here are some of the breakdowns in our solar system. 35,000 million, or billion, as we call it, monads of love. They far outnumber all the others in our particular system. 20,000 million monads of activity, and far fewer monads of power. Let's see if I can find the thing I'm looking for here. Yes, and here's this, I don't know how I got on this, but, sometimes you have to go where you go. In the first solar system, there was one dominant evolution, and it consisted of 100,000 million monads. So I guess 100 followed by 9 zeros. In the present system, the second, now by the way, these are the major solar systems, right? Because there are others that preceded it which are not major. In the present system, the second, there are 2 dominant evolutions. You would expect the duality to show up in the second major system. The human and the deva. There are, as earlier stated, 60,000 million human monads, and add to this the feminine evolution of the devas, consisting of 140,000 million, and you have the necessary 200,000 million. And this is a feminine system, you see. And then the last system will be the 6th, and the 7th will be the sum of all of them. But in the third solar system, which is still trillions of years ahead, according to the Brahmanic chronology, the total number in evolution will be the needed 300,000 million that perfection requires of the threefold logos. Now, the word perfection is very interesting, because the number 6 is considered a perfect number. So we have, 600,000 million total. And what's this? This is going to be achieved by adding 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 6. And what makes it a perfect number, the 6, is 1 times 2 times 3 also equals the 6. So the sum of the parts is equal to the product, the multiplicative product of the parts. And 6 ends up being one of those perfect numbers where that is true. I really don't know if there are any others, but one could study and find out. So here on Cosmic Fire, no, I guess it's esoteric healing, isn't it? I think so. Looks like it. This description is given. It's esoteric healing of the kinds of monads that will be found during different millions and even trillions of years in our particular solar system, the evolution of our solar logos. So really, we're one of a host of evolving beings. And when you kind of look at this, the way it could be considered, every one of these creative hierarchies that you've sometimes seen on this table, both in esoteric astrology and also in a treatise on cosmic fire, every one of these groups is a grouping of evolving monads. And they pretty well stick together. Sometimes you have laggards and those that fall behind, and sometimes you have a few that speed ahead and enter the next hierarchy. But the majority of human beings in this human hierarchy will enter together the fifth creative hierarchy, which seems to be below the human hierarchy, but not really. It's the hierarchy of solar angels, and the reason that it is sometimes considered lower than the human hierarchy is that it has come in sacrificially to a position lower than the monads in order to help the human monads manifest more accurately on the planet. So there's a lot of mysteries here, excuse me, but the Master DK, is an expert in these matters regarding the creative hierarchies, the rays, and the astrological qualities. So particularly he specializes in these matters, and we will learn from him. Okay, that should have given us time to gather. I just want to thank you, for showing up for some of these webinars. You can study all of this on Makara, and you have to know that recently so much that was on Yahoo, and some of those groups have been going for a long time, as well as our complete list of Ageless Wisdom compilations, as I understand it, are now on Makara, because Yahoo was undergoing some kind of I don't know, maybe a collapse, I'm not sure. But anyway, it was no longer possible to store a lot of material there. So you'll find it on Makara, and Makara then is really expanding as a website. And we do hope that some of this will be available as well on the YouTube Moria Federation site. Anyway, these groups of hierarchies are groups of monads, and they are arranged within the grouping in hierarchical form. In other words, there are very advanced human monads and those that are relatively just starting out, and do not even have necessarily a solar angel associated with them. And, of course, millions of years separate their development. And if that is the case with human beings, why should it not be the case with solar angelic monads as well? There being quite a contrast between the earlier developing solar angels and those that come later, or sometimes we call them solar Treatise. So let's just say there may be some, I'll give you an example. Just have to find a good one here. There are some, let's say, solar angels or solar Treatise that are developing through what we might call petal substance, the knowledge tier, let us say, and through the different color ranges of the knowledge tier, and they are hierarchically arranged. And then more advanced types are working through the Hall of Learning and through the petals of love, 4, 5, and 6, and still more advanced types through the sacrifice petals, which are 7, 8, and 9, and still more advanced types through the synthesis petals, and probably they have something to do as well with the jewel in the lotus. The synthesis petals are coming from the Buddhic plane, and from the monad and Atma comes the jewel in the lotus. So these are methods by which the solar angel can evolve, plus the entire solar angel, which manifests as the angel of the presence and seems to include all this. I guess my point is that for every hierarchy that we see here, they are not all equal in their development and in their manifestation. There's a hierarchy within the gathering of monads, and we certainly know that to be the case. I mean, we're studying this material from Alice Bailey and the Tibetan. None of us is exactly the caveman, except maybe on a bad day, I don't know. But we're working in such a way that we have maybe undergone 99% of our incarnations. I once tried to figure that out, and it came out even to more than 99% of the incarnations elapsed, given the average initiate of the first degree. And if we stick with this material and really use it as the basis of our spiritual unfoldment, it will be an indication that probably we are either hovering around that first degree or have passed it or are somewhere in the initiations of the thresholds. Okay, so I just want to say hi and welcome Andrea and Anne and Annette and Antonella, Brennan, Karsten, Catherine, and Chris. Some of you show up for the morning and the evening, or evening and morning, whatever it is for you. Deborah, hi, and Diana, and Eric, Frederick, Heike, Helene, and Joan, and Yohee or Johee Lee from, I think, South Korea, and Kim, Mariana, and Marina, Martha Gallahue and Martha Mickelson, Mary Bell and Michael M. and Nicholas, Nesa, Risto, Stephen Sprung, also, Tia and Vera and Zenaidi. So welcome to all of you. And over here on the other side, Joe and I are trying to keep the ship afloat, especially Joe. And, my job is to try to say something that is mildly intelligent and useful. And sometimes it works and sometimes not. Okay, so welcome to everybody. And look, to study the ageless wisdom is what I call often a spherical study. It's not really a linear thing. You may look at certain subjects and there's a kind of linearity to it, but in the last analysis, it's a great sphere of knowledge, and from any point on or within that sphere, you can get to any other point. Now, when we finally succeed in doing that, or coming closer to that, we will be developing the pure reason of the Buddhic plane. That will signal to us that we are in the realm of the fourth subplane of the fourth plane, where some kind of synthesis of knowledge really begins to develop. And then, of course, we have above that 24 subplanes and below 24 subplanes. So we're working on synthesis, friends, but in order to have a real synthesis, you don't need just a mystical synthesis. You need an articulated synthesis, so that in a way, with the fifth ray, every item is studied for its nature and its possible nearby relations. And when all of that is as clear as it can be, then you can begin to really put things together. You don't want to put together unexamined parts and pieces. The details should be scrutinized the best you possibly can, and then when you bring them together, you'll have an articulated synthesis, and it will be much clearer than otherwise would be the case. Now, I was talking with Joe, and apparently I have given you some of the earlier, what do you call them? Not exactly compilations, but they are commentaries. And they are also on Makara. You can find them there, but I'm throwing in a few other things. We're on the 5th interactive webinar and the 9th webinar altogether. And we last time studied the idea that we have a triple solar system, and we looked at electric fire a little, dealt with in the last 100 pages or so of this book. We looked at solar fire, the fire of consciousness, the fire of the soul, which will be, DK says, the most popular part of the book and most widely read, consisting of hundreds of pages. And then early on, and we'll begin that, is fire by friction, maybe the first 100 pages or so of the book. For people with the 5th ray, they'll be happy about it. Maybe others will be longing and panting and waiting for getting into the soul nature of things, but we do have to study the foundation. And the 3rd ray, generically, and fire by friction provides this foundation. So even though it may not be quite as exciting as it will be when we get into solar fire, we do have to endure it in order to understand what the 3rd ray is. And the ruler of the last great solar system, it's sometimes called the builder of the foundation. Now that reminds me that if you really want to get a sense of these rays, one of the best things to do, the rays in a fairly exalted sense, is to go to esoteric psychology number 1. And what you're going to find there are the names of the ray lords all the way, and it's marvelous stuff. And I've written a kind of a little musical or little opera on these things, and having the ray lord names and so forth. It's called the Ray Lord's Ritual, and here are some of the names. And DK tells us that if you study the names carefully, it may come to you what really are your rays. That will be the revelation. What really are your rays? The names of the ray lords may give you the hint you need. Some of them are pretty drastic, as you see right here with the 1st ray names. So then go to around page 63, 62, and for a number of pages, the names of the ray lords and the interactive questioning of each ray lord by the other 6 are found there, and you're going to learn a lot about where you come from, at least this time around. Now, so here we are in the reading, and we've looked at a threefold nature: electric, solar, and friction. And it says each of these 3 is also triple in manifestation. And what I'd like to say is that there are cycles for each one of the rays, and they don't necessarily immediately correspond to the same number as the ray. Now, I may have mentioned this, but when it comes to the 3rd ray, the number 9 determines the cycle. 9 years, 90 years, 900, 9,000, 90,000, 900,000, and so forth. Those are the cycles of the 3rd ray. And for the 2nd ray, which is very important to us, it's the number 5, 50, 500, 5,000, 50,000, and so forth. But when you get to ray 1, it is 1. It's 1, it's 10, it's 100, it's 1,000, it's 10,000, and so forth. And the same goes for number 7. The other ray cycles are a little bit speculative. I think Stephen Pugh has done really good work on this, and he comes up with the idea that 2.5 indicates, or 25, or 250, or like that, indicates the 4th ray. 3.5 indicates the 5th ray, and then something backed up by the Tibetan 1.5, 15, 150, and all that represents the 6th ray. He does break down the great 6th ray cycle, interestingly enough, into 150-year periods. Now, he's not rigid about that, but he says, they overlap. And he goes through the history of the last 2,000 years or so and shows you how they manifested. So let's just say maybe the last word is not in on that 2.5, 3.5, or 1.5, but maybe that really is accurate, and there's reason to think that it may be so. Okay, so when we come to the 3rd ray, it's a 9-fold cycle, and I copied a little bit of the tree of life here. Now this is interesting, and let's just say the workers in this particular system of knowledge have different ideas about some of the sephirot, as they're called, the kind of centers in any living being, and you can apply these as well to your own etheric system. However, when you do that, you have to realize that this is a very, very old system. And he tells us that in the Old Testament, and I suppose particularly the books of Moses and however the Kabbalah is mentioned there, you're dealing with the synthesized knowledge of the first major solar system, the one that preceded our own. It's all under, in a way, it's all under the 3rd ray. And so the Tibetan says, although he gives lots of it in Blavatsky's books, and she does as well, because she has a lot of the 3rd ray, and she's quite an amazing historian, and so is the Tibetan. He's basically telling you it's a secondary system. Okay, you can study it if you want, and many of us do study it because different points are revealed to us through this study. But it's not as immediate in its revelatory value to the modern student as the new system being presented by the Trans-Himalayan Brotherhood in this system based upon the 7 rays. As a matter of fact, the rays are not even mentioned, and what I do believe happens is that astrology is a great 3rd ray science, and much of a limited type of astrology is offered in this Kabbalistic system. Now, what DK has done is not only offer the astrology, but enlarge upon that, given the development of evolution, evolutionary advancement, and he's given us the 7 rays as well. The study of the 7 rays corresponds very much to the 2nd ray as a whole. The study of astrology corresponds very much to the third ray with all of its intricacies and its complexity. So the reason I threw these in is because he mentions them. It's a 9. And he says, there are 9 potencies or emanations. This we see in every numerical system. And the question is how to correlate this 9-foldness, sometimes brought forward as the Ennead system, with the 7-fold system, as there are distinct differences, and these things have to be tested out further. In the ancient system, derived from the first solar system, let's see, what was I going to say here? Okay. Yeah, it'll have to come back to me. Yeah, here's what I'm going to say. That just in the same way as in Vedic astrology, the external trans-Saturnian planets may or may not be indicated. Now, you know, the Vedic astrology definitely doesn't use what is beyond Saturn, unless, of course, and that's so interesting, you know, coming from India as it does, with Saturn as the principal ruler of Capricorn, which is the personality sign of India, okay, at least at this present time. But we see different kinds of assignments of some of those trans-Saturnian planets in the system of 9. Because after all, you know, it's considered sometimes we have 9 planets, major ones, and if you don't consider Vulcan maybe would make the 10th, but we're just filled with planets out there in our solar system, so many of them unknown to us, and there have been investigators that try to name these things, and it's that way too with constellations. Not only are there the blazing suns, which are noticeable from our particular point in space, but there's all kinds of lesser stars that are on their way or are in the process of flaming out and disappearing. So a solar system is a much more complicated thing in terms of the kinds of lives that it has. So we're always looking for a 9 here somewhere. And then he goes on to talk about, now, by the way, I deliberately skipped over the correlations between the system of 7 and the system of 9. Now, basically, when it comes to the, you know, you can always make the last member of a system into a triplicity and then add that all together. So when you've got a 7, you know, maybe you can get a 10 out of it by putting down 3 additional once you reach the 7th point. And you can get out of a 9, you can get a system of 12, adding 3 once you reach the 9th point. Now, how much of that is justified, we will have to see. The study of esoteric numerology is very important, but you know how it is with even with astrology. With numerology, there's just all different kinds of points of view, and some of those points of view are very exoteric, and some are deeper. I'm happy to look at the rays correlated with the first 7 numbers and to base my study on that, and to say that the tree of life shows these 7. Well, you know, sometimes they talk about a mystical point called Da'ath in the center of it all, and some people assign it to Pluto and something else. But basically, what you've got is 3 synthesizing planets hovering over a 7. So, we'd have to see how we arrange these. And I think it's pretty well understood that Bina, which is the Sephira of the third ray, is associated with Saturn. Now, here comes an interesting point, whether Uranus or Neptune should be swapped around or whether they should be left in this manner. And I'll show you what I mean. Okay, there it is. There it is. Notice how external to at least what I consider to be an exoteric Saturn, or maybe an esoteric Saturn, a very expansive view of what Saturn is, comprising these 7 planetary schemes, 7 planetary schemes, are up there, Neptune and Uranus. Now, Uranus is the king of planets, in a way, and Neptune is considered secondary to Uranus. However, if we go back here, should wisdom be associated with Neptune or with Uranus? This is the crown. The top is the crown, and it's called Kether in Kabbalistic terms. Now, should that be associated with Uranus or Neptune? And you can make an argument for either one, but in this particular solar system, it is perhaps correct to put Neptune at the top. And why would that be? Because this is the second major solar system, and therefore the fifth in a series, some of which are not major. And what is the monadic ray of Neptune? It is the third ray. So I would suggest that there's going to be some degree of rotation going on here in this upper synthetic group, the synthesizing planets. Maybe in the previous solar system, Saturn took the top position because it was largely a third-ray position, third-ray system. Now Neptune has a second-ray monad, Saturn has a third-ray monad, and if you turn to page 420, 421 in the Esoteric Psychology, Volume 1, you're going to see that Uranus has a first-ray monad. So that's the essence of what the planet is. So in the next solar system, which will be the sixth, we may have to revise the whole picture and put Uranus at the top, Saturn maintaining its position, and Neptune will change positions. Many of these triangles, as a matter of fact, I suppose all triangles, if we only knew how it was done, are called triangles in rotation. And basically, either the quality 3, 2, or 1 will be in the topmost position, depending upon the predominating quality of the triangle. Now, in this particular solar system, it's going to be a second-ray predominance, and so I would say that Neptune logically has a place there. As far as this mystical point called Da'ath, I'm just going to let that pass because I don't think I can say really anything about it, or why Pluto should be that, or why it should be called knowledge. It's a mystical point, and people assign it differently. I mean, look, if we're going to go over here to another assignment, it's going to, let's see what it's going to show. If I can get there, yeah. It doesn't show anything here. It's like it doesn't even exist. And here again, it's knowledge. Of course, these are the Hebrew letters, which, like the Sanskrit alphabet, contain much revelation. Just look up the Tree of Life on Google, and you're going to find a lot of information. We're not really studying that. We're only looking at the fact that out of every 3, there comes a 9, and how it's related to the previous solar system and the gathering of the esoteric knowledge of the previous solar system as found in the Old Testament, thus being secondary to what we should be studying now. When it comes to Gebura, and sometimes these V's and B's are interchanged, there is a kind of severity that goes with it, and Mars is correct. When it comes to Chesed, so oftentimes spelled with a CH, it's the quality of mercy, and Jupiter is there. And then the sort of a central place here is Tifereth, and that is associated with the sun. And then derivative from the sun. See, all of these are paths of development, and get out your tarot decks, and you can find different ways of, if you want, of following the developmental paths of the previous solar system. I would, however, in this case, recommend the Trans-Himalayan Lodge, because we're told that for the modern Western individual, it's the Trans-Himalayan school that is the school for them, and not the Indian school particularly, and not the school in the Far East that serves the 4th root race in China and in Japan. So the Trans-Himalayan approach is for us, and that's what Masters Moria, Kutumi, and DK are presenting to us. When it comes to Hod, it's Mercury, or a splendor is sometimes called, revelation, or the light. Different things are said in different ways. There must be 20 of these trees of life laid out. And interesting that the number 8 is connected here with Mercury. That ties in with what we know about Mercury as being the hierarchical ruler of the 8th sign, which is Scorpio. And sometimes Mercury is called the guardian at the 8th gate. And I'd have to check, whether I'm correct on this, but I believe there's something about the geometrical pattern that's made by alignments of Mercury on the Sun, which demonstrates the number 8. Of course, we skipped over 7 here, and that is considered to be Venus. Now, why it should be, you can look at this and say, well, Venus should be there with beauty, and maybe the Sun should be with victory, but I think you have to put the Sun in the middle, representing either the solar plexus or the heart of this particular system of chakras. In the old days, the solar plexus was really, really considered to be important, and it's only now evolving to the heart center as the most important. Now, so in what way would Venus give us victory? And I would just say, well, if we become solar angels and we listen and obey to everything our solar angel and the angel of the presence give us, then we will achieve victory over the elemental nature of our lower personality, and the personality will begin to be infused by the higher energies, finally, of which Venus is very important, giving us the first real initiation, which is the 3rd, which activates the brow center, which is ruled by Venus and the 5th ray. So Netzach is victory in that sense of the spiritual over the material. It's kind of interesting. These would be different now. because in a way, Geburah, Mars, and all of that, Mars is just not that important when compared to Venus, not even that important when the solar logos is involved, because Mars is a non-sacred planet, less sacred than Earth. Now, when you come down here to Yesod, which is the foundation, basically what you've got there is the moon. Now, in different systems, the moon is always put there, but what we see has happened. I mean, I don't go with the assignments so much in this particular diagram. I don't think that Pluto at all belongs to Kether, but it's good in other ways to lay out what planets could be connected, and the moon doesn't belong up here either. But I think I've given you the assignments of the three sacred planets, and you can understand. So basically, the moon is the foundation, but we know how related to Neptune the moon is, because the moon is often veiling Neptune, especially in the average emotionally polarized individual, even if a quite high emotional polarization. And finally, we get down to terra firma, which is Malkuth, which is the kingdom, the earth, the base of the spine, and so forth. We could try to assign all of these to the chakras, and we could probably come up with alternative assignments strongly believed in by the people who create them, but let's just say I don't think it's worth our time. Just the idea that our chakra system and the paths between the chakras and the rulers of the chakras, not the ray rulers, because Kabbalah doesn't give that, but the planetary rulers are here given. And that's all part of what he says here about the 9 Sephiroth. He says he excludes Kether, or the crown, or he excludes Malkuth, or the earth. The earth is the 10th, or if we include the earth, then Kether, the crown here, is the 10th, counting from below. Basically, one can look at Kether in a way as the monad. And if we, I think this would be it. Right here. Okay. If we do this, we would find that Uranus was connected with the Sea of Fire, especially in the next solar system, and Neptune associated with the monadic plane. I leave my father's home, and turning back I save, and in the 2 signs connected with the monadic plane particularly, and I name those signs as Pisces and Virgo, Neptune is very important, at least at this time. All of this is quite intricate, okay, but once you begin to get a handle on where some of these assignments go, you'll be able to put them together in a way which, according to pure reason, is meaningful. Now, going on a little bit here, the 9 potencies are emanations, okay? And I'm just going to say, with regard to the correlation of these 2 systems, one of 9 and one of 7, there are crossovers, there are some points in common, and there are notable points which are highly divergent. Now, I'll give you an example of that. For instance, in Kabbalah, when you study the tarot, you'll often see that when the number 5 comes up, people are fighting. There's some kind of strife involved, then it's not a very settled position whatsoever. When you're studying the 7 rays, he tells us that if we want to really stabilize the mind, either a 5th ray personality or a 5th ray mental body may be chosen by the soul before the incarnation. So there's a completely different viewpoint. When it comes to Kabbalah, the number 7 is considered to be rather indeterminate and mysterious and unpredictable. Well, maybe you can connect it with Uranus. But basically, when you divide the astrological circle of 360 degrees, you divide it by the number 7, you get something, you get an aspect which is based on the number 7, and it is not coming out evenly. So there's a lot of question as to what it will bring about. If you divide by 1, by 2, by 3, by 4, by 5, by 6, you're going to get even numbers. When you start with number 7, it comes out no longer even. Then 8 and 9 and 10 give you even numbers again. Now, in the system of the 7 rays, security, stability, exact positioning is all given in the ray system connected with the number 7, but not in the Kabbalistic system of 9. So there are great variations and a lot of study, I think, in contrasting the two would have to be given if you can, stand the thought of that kind of study. Tuya, I'm moving you over to the other side here. Right, okay. So those are the 9 Sephiroth, and we can eliminate Kether at the top, the crown, the monad, or we can eliminate the earth at the bottom, which probably is the physical vehicle. Now, but I want to point out something different again. I want to say, and all I got to do is find it. Let's see, where are we here? All right, well, that'll have to do for the moment. When you look at the 5 non-sacred planets, you know what they are, perhaps. I'm going to review them for us. They are the moon, representing the dense physical body. They are Earth, representing the etheric body. They are Mars, representing just about everything, the whole personality, and especially the physical body and the astral body. Then there is a hidden planet veiling the sun. That's another one, and another hidden planet that the moon is veiling. Now, and we can possibly look at those non-sacreds as the sun ruling the whole personality, and maybe Pluto ruling the mind, the lower mind, Mars ruling the astral body, and when it comes to Earth, the etheric body, and the moon veiling what? The planet Rex? Sometimes we're told that the moon is the king of planets, and some of the researchers go into what's the name of the planet associated with the moon. They call it Rex, the king, So that would give you the 5, and that would give you the personality. And of course, in the Kabbalistic system, it's reversed. This Yesod is more like etheric control. And then if the moon were really the dense physical body, it would be down here, but it's not. So there's a lot of variation in the way these things are assigned by the different practitioners and theoreticians, and it would all have to be sorted out. which it will be sorted out during the coming, hundreds of years. Gosh, it's getting to be a family matter here. I'm seeing my cousin Linda and my son Brennan. Hi, as attending. I'm really happy to see you here. Okay, the hardest thing in the world is, maybe you've had the experience, is to get family members interested in esoterics. But I guess I'm fortunate in that respect. Okay, now let's go on. We're dealing with the Treatise on Cosmic Fire. We're dealing with a very profound book which has almost 1,300 pages and which requires voluminous study, and which is the psychological key to the secret doctrine. So please bear in mind the depth of what you are entering, and the fact that if you are patient, much will come to you, but none of this can be rushed through. There's all these different levels of esotericism and esoteric penetration into knowledge, and it just depends how deep you want to go. And, a person like myself has always wanted really to get into it as deeply as I could, and I'm sure there are many of you, hopefully all of you, that when you look at the possibilities, you would like to get into it as deeply as you can. Okay, the 9 Sephiroth, it gives you a little bit of the background, and it also tells you that in the astrology of the Kabbalah, good as it was in a third-ray system, a lot is missing when compared to the new esoteric astrology that the Tibetan has given. Okay, then we go on to what's called the 9 causes of initiation. It's always undertaken from a higher point of view. You know how the number 9 suggests 10, and you kind of wonder. We're given 9 initiations. Now, I've always pointed to where you can study this. This is, okay, I'm going to have to get this correct here. Okay, I'm going to do this one more thing. Pretty soon it's going to tell me you can't have any more instances of Alice Bailey open, all right? But we'll wait till that moment comes. So right here on page 340 of the Rays and the Initiations are your 9 initiations. Now, this is really a wonderful section to study. And what I've done is that the first half or third of the book, The Rays and the Initiations, are written out by me as a commentary, all the 14 rules. The 14 rules for groups and initiates and all that. But the last 2/3 of the book, I decided I'll never get home at this rate, and so I decided to discuss it in a video presentation. And all of this should be on Makara, and it should be as well on YouTube, I believe. I don't know if anybody can answer me on that, Joe. I don't know if you know that. Excuse me. That's where water comes in. Anyway, you can study along with me in these video presentations, and I know it's all marked out in Makara, and some of our team has actually helped me quite a bit by writing out the subject matter that is covered in any one of these programs. The programs vary from a half hour to an hour to 5 hours even. I have some very long programs where I just felt I could keep going. So this is a wonderful section concerning the 9 initiations. And I begin to think that wherever you have 9, you have 10. It seems to me that 10 starts a new series, and it's sort of like the bottom initiation in a whole new level of unfoldment. Now, look, people like you and I, we don't have to worry about this, not yet. Let's just say if we could be sure that we had taken the purification here, the baptism in the River Jordan, if we could overcome the majority of glamour in our lives, that would be a lot, okay? Through dedication and the arising of fire and water, steam, glamour, and finally solved through devotion. And then maybe a few can push on ahead towards transfiguration. This would be the rays ruling these things. This would be the method of proceeding, and it's here that Master DK is training us. He's not training us for all this other stuff, which are very, very important, but lie some, I would say, in the case of the average person like you or me, would lie some thousands of years ahead. Look, let's just say that initiation has been speeded up considerably now, because many more initiates are needed to help guide humanity into the Aquarian Age and to help humanity live in the Aquarian Age. But since the Master Jesus, on the 6th ray, took the 2nd initiation, it has been about 4,000 years. Depends on when you think Moses existed and all of that, because he was Joshua, the general of Moses, okay? So, and Master Mori was involved, and of course, the one we call Jeshua or Jesus now. So that's 4,000 years ago. Now he's a Chohan. We don't know. We know that he took, in the 1st century A.D., the Master Jesus, working through the body of Apollonius of Tyana, took the 5th initiation. I mean, you can work through, he was not Apollonius, but he used the vehicle of his disciple Apollonius. So that would be about 2,000 years, wouldn't it? And then when he became a Chohan, I don't know, but that was the 5th degree. Now, things have speeded up considerably since that time. And on page 84 and 85 of Letters of Initiation, Human and Solar, he tells us you can take the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th initiation in the same life, and you probably will, or in the immediately next life. So just look at the transition between page 84 and 85 of that wonderful little book, and you'll see it all spelled out for you. As a matter of fact, it's so important that, that I'm going to go there immediately so you can see. I know I've done this before, but it always has my wonder. I'm just amazed at it, that it should be so. Many lives may intervene between the 1st initiation and the 2nd. Yeah, maybe. Okay. A long period of many incarnations may elapse before the control of the astral body is perfected. Now, are we going to tell each other we've got real control of the astral body? Maybe some few here do. And the initiate is ready for the next step, because that's what it means. The 2nd initiation means pretty much the control of the astral body. The analogy from all these years is kept in an interesting way in the New Testament in the life of the initiate Jesus. Many years elapsed between the birth and the baptism. Okay, so that was like he was 30 years old when he took the baptism, right? From the time he was born. But the remaining 3 steps were taken in 3 years. Once the second initiation is taken, the progress will be rapid. The third and fourth following, probably in the same life or the succeeding. Now, that's one of those amazing statements to me, because you kind of look around and you see how we as disciples are doing, and you kind of wonder whether any of us is able to take advantage of this kind of speeding up of the initiatory process. But there you have it. So, we may not have to wait. Think of it this way. The crucifixion of the Master Jesus compared with, well, he was the initiate Jesus, compared with Joshua, that he was Joshua the son of Nun, he was the great general, 2,000 years. Now, they're talking about the same life. Just think of that. That's an amazing statement. And of course, once these pioneers really venture into the demands of initiation, they open the door for us, so it's easier for us. You've heard about, how Moses, Christ, and St. Paul, how they created tears, rips, rents in the veils of Maya. Well, over a period of I don't know how many thousand years, that's what makes it easier for all of us to pass through. And that's why things are speeding up. This is a wonderful book. Look, if you haven't read Initiation, Human and Solar at all, or recently, reread it, because it just is chock full of things you need to know in order for real esotericism to be foundational in your life. So there, what are the causes of initiation? Is there a 10th initiation which starts you on a new path altogether? I would say in general, the main cause of initiation is to be what we are. We are the spirit. We are inherently free, but because of sacrifice, we have undertaken to help lower forms of life. So the cause is always the spirit longing to help, and at the same time longing to be free. That urge towards freedom is a real, really important thing that liberates us from identification with form. So that's in general. And then basically the spirit, which we are, the monad, the inner fire, the essence, the beingness, the isness, call it whatever you want to call it, it's got to conquer one dimension after another, going up the subplanes, so to speak, until it is free entirely from the cosmic physical plane, and even the Christ and even the Buddha are not yet free from the cosmic physical plane. So the spirit is driving us forward into the corresponding dimensions which we have to master at each initiation. And behind it all, that's the fire that is pushing you forward in order to find increasing liberation. And while you're at it, you take with you quite a few people and members of your own hierarchy and help them rise, okay? So let's see, maybe some points in group discussion arose. I don't know that I'm necessarily going to go through these or not. because you can read about them if you wish. But let me just say that there are different categories of initiation. The first, second, and third relate pretty much to being humanity. By the time fourth, fifth, and sixth, well, let's just say you've entered the kingdom of souls, but you're still pretty much a human being. By the time 4, 5, and 6 have elapsed, you are no longer a human being, as are the masters. The top of initiation as a human being, think of Leonardo's man and his fivefoldness. That takes place at the fifth initiation. By the time you're a Chohan, you are a light, a spherical light, which carries out the will of God in Shambhala. And so you're in the hierarchy, and when you take initiation 7, 8, and 9, they are related to Shambhala. Okay, not everybody goes the Shambhala route, but for a while you remain associated with Shambhala. Those people who are on the path of earth service, such as the hierarchy that we work with, or that work with us, are pretty much on the path at this time of earth service. Maybe it's the most humble path of all. And my friend and colleague Dwayne Carpenter has drawn some wonderful illustrations about the symbolism of these various paths. And this path of earth service, it's, I don't know, let me just call it the path of the green dragon. And we're going to get into that more and more. And all of us try to become dragons, minor dragons of wisdom, such as a master is. Let's see if there's anything else here. Yes, I've said that. The top of being a human being per se is mastership, but beyond that, they are no longer men, as are the masters. It tells us in, I think, Rule 6, in the rays and the initiations. What about the Lord of the World? Sanat Kumara, he's not limited by the 9th degree, not at all. He's in an entirely different system of initiations. How many systems of initiations there are, we don't know yet, but we certainly know that there are certain initiations for a human being, certain initiations for a high emanation, such as the Lord of the World. There are certain initiations for planetary logoi, and page 384 of Cosmic Fire will give this to you, and obviously certain still higher initiations for a solar god, a solar logos. So believe me, you've got plenty to do in the future, and I think sometimes we should remind ourselves of just how much is going on in this amazing universe and how much opportunity we have to learn the lesson being taught in any particular universe. Okay, so these, says the Tibetan, with the totality of manifestation or the whole. See, it's very interesting about numerology. People argue, are there 6 solar systems or are there 7? Well, there are 6 solar systems of a progressive nature for our solar logos. However, by the time you reach number 6, you add all 6 together, and in some way overcoming time and space, you create a holistic 7th solar system, which may never appear literally, but by some kind of interesting conversion becomes the 7th. Is there anything here to discuss? Well, the Brotherhood of Luxor, that's really interesting. Jeffrey Hodson, a lot of you know about him. He lived to be a ripe old age, 96 years old, I think. He was a Pisces person, a Theosophist with Aries rising. He was a very first-rate kind of guy, and he wrote that Kingdom of the Gods, where he collaborated with an artist and showed the beauty of many of the kinds of devas or angels that could be found doing different functions and guarding different places, So, and he was somehow under the instruction of the Brotherhood of Luxor. Now we know Luxor is a place in Egypt where there are many of these temples and ancient structures, and in that brotherhood, some of the leading figures, we're going to find our fourth-ray master, Master Serapis Bey. They call him Tutuit Bey, I think, there. And a certain Polydorus Isuranius, the Master P, who is now heading the fourth-ray ashram, while Master Serapis works with the angels, trying to bring the angels and humanity together so that this wonderful renaissance can flourish, the Master P. And then there's an Englishman, apparently, by the name of Robert Ward, and those are the three names given. And we're told Jeffrey Hodson got the material for the Hidden Wisdom of the Holy Bible, his three-part series, interesting reading, from this fourth-ray Brotherhood of Luxor. Now let's see. I've talked on and on. I know that. I'm not going to talk much more. Well, okay. Here I have something to say about the Treatise, and it looks like a set of bowling pins. You know how it goes. Whenever you go bowling and you have the pins set up there, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just the beginning of the Treatise, and you have to knock them all down, which means you conquer them. 10 is a number of perfection related to man, and 12 is a number of perfection related to the Deva kingdom. So there's a zodiac of 10, there's a zodiac of 12. Put them all together, and you get the magical, mystical number 2022. Right. So as we started talking about this time, our big job in this solar system is to put the man and the Deva together. It's a dual solar system, and we have to learn how to unify in harmony the Deva part of ourself and the man part of ourself. And maybe by the time some of us get to be a planetary god or have a planet as our means of manifestation, we will have united the Deva and the human part of ourselves. Already, if we learn how to use the intuition on the Buddhic plane, we are already beginning to unite the angel kingdom and the human kingdom within us. So there's some stuff on the Treatise here. These three aspects of the whole are present in every form. We look at a human being, there's the head, there's the torso, and then there's the arms and legs. That's the sort of the threefold division. It's found in every living being. The solar system is triple and manifested through the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, and through different kinds of planets. The solar system manifests through non-sacred planets, sacred planets, and synthesizing planets. And, the grand man of the heavens or the lion of cosmic will, it has the same thing. The head, the torso, and the arms and legs. A human being is also triple. Now, and so is the atom of substance, triple, and maybe we're going to get into the subatomic particles, and we're going to find triplicity as well. Okay, I think it takes a little while to get through some of these foundational things, and you might want to read some of it as if you have time for that. And what I'm going to do is just call it quits here in terms of studying the compilation and the things suggested by the compilation. So I'm going to copy this, realizing that we're not moving a whole lot of numbers of pages here, not by any means, but hopefully we will deepen our esotericism. So this is all about being triple. And the next time we get together, we'll deal with that triplicity, the idea of triplicity. Now, without making everything eliminate, I wonder if I can do this. Looks like maybe I can. No, up. I don't like to ever stop, right? All right, so this is group webinar number 5. We finished that. Not quite, we're going to talk a little bit. And this is number 10. There have been 10 programs. And this is going to be coming up webinar number 6. That's where we are. And there have been, so far 9 programs. Now, it just depends on how deep you want to go into this. There's unlimited depth if you want. And I don't know whether this is page 4 or 5. I'm not sure. We're covering a lot of ground in terms of a lot of subjects, but we're not racing through the book. At least the foundation will be there. And do we need to study the foundation? Well, in my opinion, yes, we do. Okay. So let's see, Joe, is this page, are we on page 4 still, or are we on page 5? Do you have it? Okay. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to find out for myself. And maybe, oh goodness, we made it to page 5. That's excellent. We're just about at page. We're just about at page 5. So I'm going to put that in there, and we'll continue to study the foundations, and we will branch out and excuse me, and other things that are associated with these foundations, which are not in the book, I will also mention as we go along, because we are involved, as I said, in a process of spherical study. Okay, so now, if you've been taking notes and you have anything that you want to think about, okay, so, okay, right, okay, my cousin, hi, Linda, nice to see you here, and I hope, and Asha, you had to go, no, but maybe you're still here, and Linda, did you, I don't know, you can either write something, which you did, and or you can say something if you wish. And if you wish to say something, you'd have to unmute yourself by pressing the microphone until it becomes green and not orange. Otherwise, I'll just assume that you're there and very happy to see you. So you make up your mind how you want to do that, if you want to do that. Let's see. Okay, friends. Questions, thoughts in the whole field of occultism. We are starting out with the whole field of occultism, And I've realized that there are burning questions on the mind of this person and that person. Not that I ever say I can answer them, but I can throw in a thought here and there. And maybe they will be of value to you. So anyone want to talk? Anybody want to ask a question? Anyone want to make a statement? And it's wide open. And Vera, there you are. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hello, Michael. So on that, looking at the big sort of cycles, moon chain, when the life was transferred from moon to Earth. Now, what was actually on Earth before or during the moon chain? Was there humanity some kind on Earth at the same time as on the moon?
You know, it's a very interesting question that you're asking, because now look, let's see here. Let's get to the Earth scheme, okay? So these are the parts of the Earth scheme. You notice the moon chain is gone. It's been replaced. Now, do you think that you could get along as a living human being? Let's forget about, you know, animal, man, and all of that. As a living human being without 7 chakras. You see what I'm driving at here? In other words, is it possible to have only 1 chakra, 2 chakra, maybe 3 chakras only, and somehow the rest of your body is taken care of? And I would say no. I can't, you know, I question myself very hard on this matter, because the theosophical books seem to give you, first you do this chain, then the next chain appears, then you do that, then the next chain appears. No, I don't think so. I think all the chains are present, but the higher ones are in a latent condition. And they are in a condition which can sustain the life of the form adequately without a whole lot of development going on within the chakra itself. So I'm saying that just the way a human being is born with all 7 chakras operative, even though the attention may be on the sacral center for millions of years, or the solar plexus or whatever, so it is with the planet. And that I don't know about, is there a humanity? I think maybe not, unless it's undergoing a developmental stage. So the developmental stage of the moon chain came first, but the presence of the earth chain existed. And then the developmental stage moves to the earth chain, to the Mercury chain, to the Mars chain, and then finally to the Jupiter chain, and starts out with the Neptune chain and the Venus chain. And so you get the idea, they're all there, but they're not developmentally occurring at the same time. Now, at the end of it all, what's going to happen is the lower chains are going to fade out. The development which occurred there will allow them to be absorbed, like you would breathe into the higher chains, and then finally you'll be left with some finality, which is the synthesis of all of the chain activity, and then the planet itself will probably be absorbed into another absorbing planet, not physically, but in terms of its subtle principles. And when I work this all out, or, you know, I mean, you speculate, okay? I figured that planet is Venus, and then eventually into other parts of the Saturn scheme. See, this to me, I mean, some people think, you know, I've heard it said, and the reasoning is pretty good, that there's a planet called Sigma, and it's the esoteric Saturn and all of that. But I look at it also in another way, that the esoteric Saturn is all of these under a kind of Saturnian third ray rulership, all these seven, including the planet Saturn itself. So eventually, whatever is found here, since it applies very much to the previous major solar system, is going to first be absorbed maybe into Uranus and then into Neptune, or selectively certain planets will find their way into Neptune, and others like Mercury will find their way into Uranus. For instance, we're told that Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. Okay, well, that would be a natural place for Mercury to be absorbed. Now, we're told that Neptune is the higher octave of Venus, a natural place for Venus to be absorbed. And somehow I worked all that out in my writings that are on Makara right now. I don't even remember all that I suggested, but there's a pairing up of planets, and gradually you're only left with one.
Yeah.
And now the question is that one planet in our solar system Neptune because of its second ray monad, or is it Uranus, the king of planets? I'm pretty well happy with entertaining the idea that it may be Neptune, and then Neptune will be absorbed by the solar logos, by the sun, because it represents the heart of the sun in a certain respect. Neptune represents many things, but among them is the heart of the sun. So that whole business about how things synthesize at the end is a very interesting, intricate kind of thing. We don't know. It's probably some of the secrets of initiation that we cannot fathom yet, but we know it's going to take a long time, because we're only halfway through the development of our solar system and only halfway through the development of our planet, which is not even a planet that lasts for the entire solar system. So we're talking about millions, even billions of years, and if we want to say, it might even be trillions of years. The duration of our solar system, or at least of the solar logos' manifestation, is said to be 311 trillion 40 billion years. Now, some theoreticians say that is a mistake, and it's really a much shorter time. And Sri Yukteswar, Yogananda's teacher, and his students believed it was a severe mistake. But not Blavatsky. She says that this Brahmanical chronology that she works with and that she has presented to us in footnote number 6, which we'll be coming to, is the real thing. So, we have these huge expanses of time. But remember this, that any huge expanse of time, if it is a definite expanse of time, is an infinitesimal compared with boundless absolute infinity. So, our whole head here and our whole abstract mind has a lot of expanding to do, and we will get there. Now, I get to the point, and I don't even know whether I answered your question, but okay.
It does.
More or less. More or less. Okay.
It was very helpful. You said that to look at it as the whole system, like our body, 7 chakras, the whole solar system, not isolating bits of information.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's the whole point. The 5th ray isolates, and wisely does so, bits of information to polish them up and make sure that everything is just like crystal clear, a tiny space. But then the bringing together of those crystal clear fragments is the next step, and that requires more of the 4th ray and the 1st ray, not so much the 5th ray in this case. It has done its work making sure that we don't have a messy synthesis, but we have a highly articulated, crystal clear synthesis. So,
Thank
okay,
you.
you bet, Vera. Okay, now your thoughts. Okay, here's Antonella, and you're self-muted, Antonella. Just click.
Yes.
Now you're good.
Yes, thank you. So, two big questions. The first one, the 7 cosmic planes, can we think that they are the 7 subplanes of a higher order of super cosmic planes? I'm
Yes.
sure that
Yes.
you have touched this
Sure, I absolutely
in the past.
know the answer to this question. You know, just like when AP Senate was asking Master Kutumi certain things, he said, Kutumi says, "Well, you know, I'd love to be able to answer you, but you've just asked some of the questions regarding the 6th initiation and its mysteries, and so I can't really say a thing." But look, once Tuya, just for fun, made a whole bunch of these sheets of paper marking out planar development. And of course, you know, she had to stand on a chair in order for them even to kind of hit the ground, and she would have had to stand on the roof in order to do the whole thing. So the way I look at this is that this is the physical. This is the cosmic ether, and this is the cosmic dense. But if we look at this whole thing, it turns out to be simply a physical plane of a super cosmic type, an etheric physical super. Yeah, and then of course, how far do you take it? Now he tells us on page 1084 of Cosmic Fire roughly that we've got 10 dimensions in our cosmos. Where do these dimensions really begin, and how long do they last? It seems to me that when we're starting to deal with structures like, oh, well, you know, this thing. I'll show you what I mean. Here are these, every one of these triangles to me is a one about whom not me said. It's a cluster. And then there's a sub-parabrahmanic logos, which includes 7 ones about whom not may be said, and then there is a para-Brahmanic logos, because he doesn't mean absolute reality here. He means something else, a cosmic para-Brahm. It contains 7 of these. How far does it go on? Do the arms of galaxies get involved here? Do families of galaxies get involved? I think that we're much below the level, much below the galactic level when we're looking at this stuff. Okay, and I think, well, you know, then if we deal with the galaxy, and we deal with aggregations of galaxies and aggregations of aggregations in order to create the whole universe, maybe some of those higher dimensions are going to be reflected there. I would be very surprised if there's no dimension corresponding to the galactic level. I'm pretty sure the solar logoi level there is. I'm pretty sure the cosmic logoi level there is, and on it goes. I just don't know exactly where to begin numbering the dimensions. Now, it's in the old commentary, right here, if I can just point it out so it'll be easy for people to find it. If I can, if I actually don't know where I'm going here. Okay, here it is. I once tried to figure out how old the universe was by looking at this yellow outline. And of course, it's just, it was just a lark. I ended up with something like with 80 or 90 zeros or something like that. The one wheel, okay, 10 million kalpas pass, and twice 10 million Brahmic cycles, and yet 1 hour of cosmic time is not completed. And here's the thing: within the wheel, forming that wheel, are all the lesser wheels from the 1st to the 10th dimension. Okay, so that's how I based it, and I looked at how long does a man live? 70 years, 75 years, whatever. I said, okay, maybe the universe is like the grand man, and an hour. How many hours does a human being live? And then I figured that out, and then I tried to apply it to the cosmos, and I came up with some crazy figure, but it was kind of fun to give it a try. So right here on page 1084 is something to ponder, and all we can do is get that sense of awe, I think, and maybe that would be enough. Okay, what was your second question?
Yes. Anyway, it's yeah. I have read 3 times or studied 3 times the Treatise of Cosmic Fire, but yes, on this topic, I'm not clear at all. Not now anymore. Anyway, the second question is this: sometimes the case says that the 3rd initiation is the first solar, and the 5th initiation, planetary initiation, is the first cosmic initiation.
Yes.
But sometimes he speaks about that the solar logos is going to take the 4th cosmic initiation. So it's clear that the cosmic initiation of the solar logos is of a different order.
Yes.
From the cosmic 5th planetary initiation. So it's not confusing. We know that decay uses the same term for different levels.
That's right.
So I was wondering if the 8th and the 9th in planetary initiations, what subplanes the initiate is managing, is ruling. So if we guess that the 7th initiation, the initiate manage the 7th subplane of the physical cosmic plane, the 8th and the 9th. Can we figure what planes or subplanes are managed or ruled?
We can speculate. We can speculate in this way, that a figure 8 exists for the 8th initiation. Of course, you know, we're talking about something beyond the Buddha and the Christ at this time, so we're totally in the realm of mind, speculative mind, but that the higher part of the 8 applies to the cosmic astral plane and the ability to go there, and the lower part of the 8 still applies to the upper part of the logoic plane. And I don't know if it's 4 and 4 or 3 and 3 or whatever it is, because probably well, you know, who's to say? I'm just going to say that the 8th initiation will take you onto the cosmic astral plane and allow you to return. The 9th initiation will not allow you to return. See, so
to the physical plane, you mean?
In other words, you're on your way. You're going on the way of higher evolution at the 9th degree, and it's called refusal. You know, refusal to return to the cosmic physical physical plane. Yeah, refusal. And of course, this particular thing shows it. In other words, the cosmic physical plane is made quite big here. Okay, quite big, but it would mean that the figure 8 is operating like this. Okay? At the 8th degree, and at the 9th degree, you're either heading for the cosmic astral, where you stay, the cosmic mental. There are, you know, different destinations, or in one case, the cosmic Buddhic plane, which is the path of the solar logoi. Now, I know all this seems, you know, to many people, well, you know, it's beyond, okay, that's okay. But at the same time, it gives us a theoretical basis to understand at least a larger scope than we're used to dealing with. And we really need that, because like I'm fond of saying, that humanity's view of the afterlife and their further possibilities is really very childish so far. And we need to change that in order to get rid of some of the bad behaviors that humanity is guilty of this time, which might destroy its own nature and have to start again. So that's where the ageless wisdom is really important. Well, that's
Yeah, and
yeah, go ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and it gives also a sense of proportion, because we know that the correspondence, or at least analogy, between the solar man and us is there. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Like there are some beings out there to whom our solar logos is as a crystal, he says, as a crystal. There are probably some beings out there, our solar logos is like a subatomic particle compared to that. So so humility, which we all need, we need it, arises from a just and true sense of proportion.
yeah.
So,
Thank you.
okay.
Yeah.
3 times through cosmic fire. Very brave of you.
And the 4th is coming.
Yes. Well, this is what we're doing here is a big stretch. This is a big stretch, and obviously on your own you could read it much faster than we're going, but this kind of thing gives a give and take that I think can be useful to people. But you have a lot of third ray and second ray and all that. So the third ray, this book is written on the third ray and the first ray to a certain extent. So it is not everybody's cup of tea, but it's a great book.
No, and thanks for the exchange, because we expand our consciousness by comparing what you get and what I get, and so on.
Exactly. We all have different insights into it, and we can learn from each other. Thank you, Antonella. Okay.
Thanks to you.
You bet.
And also.
Bye-bye. Okay, friends, anything else that you would like to ask or offer? Martha, okay. Martha Gallahue, there you are.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you for going at the pace that you're going, because of the layers that you're bringing together. So very helpful. My question is, I'm asking this question to try to better grasp analogy, but it occurred to me when you were explaining to Antonella about the broad overview of our place in this very, very vast experiment. The Christ, we know that the Christ is in evolution, and when we talk about the reappearance of the Christ, the question is it necessary for this reappearance for his own evolution, or is in your opinion, or are your thoughts that it's just a sacrificial act on our own behalf? Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you what, Martha, the contrast between an avatar, which he is also called, and simply a high being, is that the avatar descends from above to help with no goal of necessity for self-improvement and so forth. Now, even solar angels, which are members of the council within the sun, they're called solar Treatise, they are not yet considered avataric, because as they descend through 2 falls, from the cosmic astral to the upper part of the cosmic physical, and then down here where they take control of our mental apparatus and so forth, they still have something to learn. And it's not absolute altruism, because it's part of their program of development. Now, although the Christ is called an avatar, and of certainly the greatest of the human avatars, the Lord Maitreya, the greatest of the present human avatars, and the first one to embody the love of God, as we're told by the Tibetan, I have this funny feeling that he's going to learn a lot about managing humanity so that the best possible outcome arises. So I think the word avatar is not being used in an entirely strict manner, as if he could gain no benefit from what he's doing. Because here's the thing. The DK says that when the Christ looks on at what lies ahead of him, he must certainly experience a certain horror at the prospect. Now, that word horror, throw up your hands and say, oh, how can I manage this? And right there, it shows you that he has something to learn and will learn. I mean, the Christ will become a ray of love. He's on the ray path. But DK says something interesting. Wherever his travels may take him on the way of higher evolution, he will eventually return to Sirius, where he is already considered an initiate within their system. So, in a way, it was just said before that the fifth initiation is really the first cosmic. And I do agree with Antonella that these are different systems. A solar logoic system is different from a planetary system and different from a human system. And we may call them all cosmic, but they are different. But already the Christ is an initiate, relatively high initiate, on the star Sirius. But they have a whole different system there, and there are three great orders of lives on Sirius, and I don't know where he stands with all of that. I just know that as a becoming seventh degree initiate, just like the Buddha, they have a certain status in relation to the star Sirius. So even though, and for how long, who knows, he journeys forth on the way of higher evolution as a ray of pure love, he eventually returns to Sirius. And that's interesting about the destiny, the destination of that great being. He's going to benefit. I just feel, how can you help it but benefit from such a difficult task? That's my feeling. Okay.
Thank you.
You bet, Martha. Okay, anything else, friends? I know we're some of you were at this morning's webinar, and I kind of ran on a bit farther than I thought I would. And so I've been talking a long time. So this is Stephen here, Stephen Renneberg, and it says go to the question pane, which I do. And okay. So if the refusal prevents return to it doesn't. It's only temporary prevention. Okay, if the refusal prevents return to the cosmic physical plane, how is it that SK can be present in Shambhala? Well, here's the thing. After the type of education in the different destinations, each one of which is a star system, occurs, it is possible then to return and be involved in terms of what's the word I'm looking for? Redemptive purposes on the cosmic physical plane. In other words, the sixth degree initiate, out of his own will, rather the ninth degree initiate, refuses to be involved anymore at that time with the cosmic physical plane. But so they go off on the cosmic astral plane and they are educated on Sirius, or they do something else and they're educated, and then they return for redemptive purposes, and for those purposes they are allowed to re-engage. Now, if you think about Sanat Kumara, he is in a way an emanation of the planetary logos. He is the planetary logos, and yet he's not. There's so many things said about him that are mysterious, But there's no question that Shambhala is in a way the higher four subplanes of the cosmic physical plane. 1, 2, 3, 4. Shambhala is here. The 4 gates to Shambhala, and especially the highest part of Shambhala, the logoic plane. However, sometimes you read in the books that Shambhala actually is already the white island in etheric matter of approximate kind. In other words, proxima, which means near, proxima ether to our lower subplanes, to dense physical, right down here. So one day Sanat Kumara will, as it were, an emanation of the Logos, let's just say it's symbolic, he will walk the earth via the lower ethers. And so that's getting way, way down here, way, way down here, and he has returned for redemptive purposes. Now, he is the one, you may remember, he, as the planetary logos, looked towards the solar logos and said, okay, I want to make a planet, just like the others did. And then when he made the planet, the lives that showed up were not what he expected, and it was a dark place, and it was just labor, and there was no way to show the scope of what he had achieved. And he looked towards the solar logos and said, do I really have to stay here? I'm just using certain language here. Do I really have to stay here? And the solar logos didn't even turn his head. He just said, we need you're probably familiar with this, and it's a beautiful thing. And because it's so beautiful, I just have to read it. So I'm going to do it. Entering God. All right. So here it is. And this is all about him coming for redemptive purposes and other beings for redemptive purposes once they have been sufficiently trained. All right. So here's the story. He entered into life and knew it to be death. This is Sanat Kumara and him as the planetary logos and him as the extension of the planetary logos. He took a form and grieved to find it dark. He drove himself forth from the secret place and sought the place of light, and light revealed all he sought the least. He craved permission to return. See, we wouldn't even have a planet if the solar logos had said, okay, well, you gave it a try and forget it. He sought the throne on high, and him who sat thereon, solar logos. He said, I sought not this. I looked for peace, for light, for scope to serve, to prove my love and to reveal my power. Light there is none. Peace is not found. Let me return. But he who sat upon the throne turned not his head. He seemed not e'en to listen nor to hear. But from the lower sphere of darkness and of pain a voice came forth and cried, we suffer here. We need the light. We need the glory of an entering God. DK says, I can find no other words except these two to express the ancient symbol from which I'm translating. Lift us to heaven. Enter, O Lord, the tomb. Raise us unto the light and make the sacrifice. Break down for us the prison wall and enter into pain. The Lord of life, the planetary logos, Sanat Kumara, returned. He liked it not, and hence the pain. So this is the chapter on sacrifice, and we're told that our planetary logos particularly has the attitude of a divine rebel. Well, as a first ray monad, you could kind of understand why that should be the case. But for redemptive purposes, I'll just make it short, for redemptive purposes, you can return. Every solar angel was a man in the last solar system, and then saw no reason except to refuse re-engagement with the cosmic physical plane at the time of achieving the ninth initiation, went off for further training, and then retracted the refusal and fell. 2 falls for solar angels, 1 into the cosmic ethers and 1 into the dense physical body of the solar logos. Okay, so are there 9th degree members of the council chamber in Shambhala? When you read who's there, there are even those who are beyond that point, certain representatives from different planets and so forth. But in general, the 9th degree signals the way of higher evolution and the path of further training. However, there is something called the path of Earth service, as you know, Stephen. And that path of Earth service is the one that somehow Sanat Kumara is on, in addition to later becoming a solar logos himself. And so it's entirely possible that some of those who would normally go on the way of higher evolution out of the solar system do remain with Shambhala. 9th degree members of the council in Shambhala, or is this a different series of initiations? It's the kind of initiations that Sanat Kumara himself is taking, and if he is the planetary logos, sometimes it says he is and then he isn't, he has taken the first cosmic initiation, he has taken 3 subsidiary initiations on the first 3 chains, he's taking the 4th initiation of a subsidiary type on another chain, namely ours, which is the reason so much difficulty. So right now, Sanat Kumara is working on this chain. It's the 4th subsidiary, and ahead of him lies the 2nd cosmic initiation. When will that be taken? Maybe, I sometimes speculate, maybe that will be taken at the Judgment Day. How far ahead is that? Millions of years, maybe a lot of millions of years. Why do they talk about the Judgment Day happening now? Because some kind of anticipation on a much smaller scale of the Judgment Day is happening now. So, in short, if your purposes are redemptive, and if you've received further training, you are allowed to re-enter the cosmic physical plane to become a solar angel, to become whatever, and help out in these lower cosmic worlds. At least that's how I see it, Stephen. And only one group, and I think you pointed to them, maybe stays with Sanat Kumara and is treading the path of Earth service and continues to tread it, Even the Christ and the Buddha aren't doing that. Christ is about to, at the 8th initiation, I think, he's about to go off and become a Ray Lord, a Ray of some kind. The Buddha, he was going to go to Sirius. What's he going to do now? It's not given. Okay? So it would require a very unusual tenacity, it seems to me, to stay with Sanat Kumara strictly on the path of Earth service and not go to the cosmic astral plane for further training. Probably an awful lot of those who are still with him have received the further training and maybe some higher initiations beyond the 9th. I'm in no position to judge that particularly. Anyway, that's how I see it for the moment. Okay? Okay, friends. Okay, well, I'm just very happy you're here. Now, I know that a lot of this, well, it seems way out there, but to tell you the truth, cosmic fire is way in there compared with our identification as being webinars. Because in identification as being that we're beholding, like most every Tuesday night, we're leaving the universe behind us. And since the universe is simply, in my view anyway, a self-perception, it does come to an end cyclically and begins again. So we can leave the universe behind us and talk about the origins of each universe, and DK is not doing that in Cosmic Fire. He's much more interested in talking about how things really fit together in this amazing planet, solar system, cosmic logos, galaxy, whatever that we've got. So it's relative knowledge and not the kinds of knowledge of being that we are studying elsewhere. Okay. All right, I'm happy that you're here, and now I think it's time to say farewell. We've been at it a couple of hours, and I hope you've gotten something out of it. And I just want to say this, that if you find this material difficult, it is, but if you keep on applying yourself, you will succeed in going farther and learning more, and your mind will expand, and your abstract mind will lead to the intuition, and you will see how things really are, and you'll be, in good shape and more able to help in terms of the larger picture. I mean, he didn't give this book because he thought it might be a nice thing to write down some arcane tidbits. This is meant to train us toward the initiate state of mind. Okay, and we'll have to make sure that Asha gets the audio, and I'm really hoping that I'm not just, it looks like the audio is working, so it looks okay. Okay, I thank you for being here, and the whole team is backing you up, and Tuya and Olivia and Joe and BL and Michael and Vic and a lot of people who are really working on bringing these programs to you. So we'll close with the great invocation, coming right down to earth, as it were. And tomorrow morning early, we'll be talking about the soul of nations one way or another. And a lot of it has to do with your own nation. And I think, Tuya has long had an idea, years and years and years, about an esoteric United Nations. And we've taken steps in that direction to try to help evoke the soul ray of many nations, studying the nations and what they need. So we're going to continue with that, and work esoterically. And we do many things when we're dealing with the destiny of the nations. We read from the destiny of the nations. We look at crises as they are occurring. In case you haven't seen, it looks like somehow the planet is just burning up. All these fires now. Australia, it's all part of the initiatory rite, but very tough to go through, and California and places in Europe and so forth. people are burning their home, as it were. And if not that, then the climate itself, through initiation and through human negligence, is contributing to these fires. So when there are difficult moments on the planet and in human society, when we have this Soul of Nations work, we undertake those as well. Okay. So if is there anybody on the side of the staff that would like to say anything at this point? I want to make sure I give you an opportunity. And if not, then I just want to thank Joe at this point, and Tuya, thank you. And then we'll continue tomorrow with that work. And of course, don't forget the other webinars. Francis is giving 2 webinars a month, and BL is working with Eva Smith, and I think it's on astrology and other things that help you through your Moria Federation curriculum. So, and Dwayne Carpenter has given webinars of an excellent nature on the abstract mind. He has a great repository of wisdom and wonderful ways of illustrating these things. So hope I'm not forgetting anybody. I probably am, but the Moria Federation faculty does want to offer you what it knows. And so we make these things available from time to time. Okay. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Om. Sorry for the coughs. Okay, friends, we'll see you at the next occasion, and we're continuing with the Ask work, and full moon is coming up with the pre-full moon, and then the sacred pentagram work that Tuya does, and then the actual exact moment full moon, which Tuya does is as a broadcast with music and imagery and so forth. Thank you for being here. Lots of love, many blessings from all of us, and we'll be in touch, huh? Okay. And let your friends know that we do these things. If any of them may be interested in this kind of deeper work, then let them know they are most welcome. Okay. Ciao.